The silent epidemic no one sees. Every year, hundreds of children cross our borders, not as refugees or migrants, but as human drug containers, their bodies turned into vessels of death by the most ruthless criminal networks on Earth. This is the story of one little girl whose pain exposed it all, and how a single doctor's instinct triggered the rescue of dozens of innocents hidden in plain sight. What happened the day her supposed father rushed her to an Arizona emergency room would forever change how America protects its most vulnerable. Before we begin this emotional story, please comment below which city you're watching from. It would be my pleasure to give your comment a little heart. Now let's begin this emotional story. The merciless Arizona sun was beating down on the asphalt. So that Tuesday in July, when a black SUV abruptly pulled into the emergency parking lot of Banner Desert Medical Center in Phoenix. From the passenger seat, a Hispanic man approximately 35 years old jumped out hurriedly, ran to the back seat, and pulled out a small girl in his arms. His face showed the genuine panic of a terrified father. "Please, help my daughter. She's very sick," shouted Rick Martinez as he rushed through the automatic doors of the emergency room, carrying Elena, a 9-year-old girl with olive skin and long black hair, now pale and visibly weakened. The triage team reacted instantly. Head nurse Susan Williams, with 28 years of experience, took command of the situation as a stretcher was quickly brought over. The girl was carefully placed on the white sheets, her small body almost disappearing between the safety rails. "What happened to her, sir?" asked Susan, already checking the child's vital signs. "It started last night with stomach pains. I thought it was something she ate at dinner," explained Rick, his voice trembling slightly. "I gave her some pain medicine, but this morning she woke up much worse, with a high fever and vomiting. She can barely speak. Indeed, the girl seemed semi-conscious, moaning softly while being examined. Her breathing was rapid and shallow, her skin hot to the touch, indicating significant fever. Any allergies? Medications she takes regularly," continued Susan, while a second nurse checked her temperature, 102.5 degrees Celsius. "No, not that I know of," answered Rick, hesitating momentarily. "She's always been healthy." The nurse looked at Elena with renewed attention. Something in the child's behavior seemed out of place. Even in her obvious pain, there was a fear in the girl's eyes that seemed directed not only at her condition, but also at the man who claimed to be her father. A small, worn teddy bear remained firmly clutched between her fragile fingers. "We'll need to do some tests immediately," said Dr. Raymond Torres, the attending physician, as he approached and performed a preliminary assessment. "Signs of severe dehydration, possible intoxication." He turned to Rick. "Mr. Martinez, when was the last time she ate or drank anything?" "She hasn't been able to keep anything down since yesterday afternoon," replied Rick, his gaze alternating between the doctor and the exits of the emergency department. "Prepare for intravenous hydration and blood collection for complete toxicology," Dr. Torres instructed the team. "And we'll need abdominal imaging. Something's not right here." As little Elena was taken further into the emergency department, no one there could imagine that this seemingly ordinary medical visit was about to uncover an international criminal operation that used innocent children as carriers of deadly drugs. What had begun as a case of abdominal pain would soon reveal dark secrets that would forever change the fate of that silent girl and many other children in similar situations. What this experienced nurse noticed in the little girl's eyes wasn't just fear of pain. It was a silent cry for help that would unravel a web of deception no one was prepared to discover. Behind the blue curtains of exam room number 3, Eleanor was connected to monitors as a nurse gently inserted an IV needle into her arm. The girl winced but remained oddly quiet for a child in pain. Dr. Torres noticed her eyes darting nervously around the room, always returning to track the movements of the man who had brought her in. "Elena, can you tell me where it hurts the most?" Dr. Torres asked gently, kneeling to be at eye level with the child. The girl's eyes flicked toward Rick before she pointed vaguely at her stomach. "Has she had any recent travel or unusual foods?" Dr. Torres directed his question to Rick, while maintaining a reassuring smile for Elena. We drove from Tucson yesterday, Rick replied. Just a family trip, nothing unusual. Nurse Williams. Noticed the inconsistency immediately. I thought you mentioned you had dinner at home last night when she first got sick. Rick's face tensed momentarily. Yes, we got home yesterday afternoon. I meant we had been traveling before that. As the medical team continued their assessment, the inconsistencies multiplied. Rick struggled to provide basic information about Elena's medical history. When asked about her pediatrician, he claimed they had recently moved and hadn't established care yet. When questioned about previous hospitalizations, he became visibly agitated. Look, I just need you to help my daughter, okay? Why all these questions? His tone shifted from concerned to defensive. Meanwhile, Elena's blood work came back showing abnormal liver function and traces of unidentified substances. Her abdominal pain seemed to intensify, and she curled into herself, clutching her teddy bear even tighter. Nurse Williams, whose decades of experience had honed her intuition, found a moment when Rick stepped out to make a phone call to speak softly to Elena. "That's a beautiful bear you have there. Does he have a name?" she asked, adjusting the IV fluid. "Miguel," Elena whispered, her first voluntary word since arriving. "Miguel is taking good care of you," Susan smiled. "Has he been with you a long time?" The girl nodded slightly. "My mama gave him to me." "Is your mama at home?" Elena's eyes welled with tears and she shook her head. Before Susan could ask another question, Rick returned, his phone conversation abruptly ending as he entered the curtained area. "The doctor ordered some scans," Susan explained professionally. "We'll need to take Elena to radiology. You can wait in the family area and we'll come get you." "No," Rick interrupted firmly. "I stay with her. She gets scared without me." Despite his words, Susan noted that Elena's grip on her teddy bear tightened anxiously at his approach. It was a subtle reaction, but to Susan's trained eye, it spoke volumes. Dr. Torres, reviewing the lab results at the nurse's station, was growing increasingly concerned. The combination of symptoms, the inconsistent history, and the child's behavior were raising red flags that went beyond medical issues. He had seen cases of child abuse and trafficking before, during his rotation at the border clinic in Nogales. Something about this case was triggering the same instincts. "I want a full abdominal CT with contrast," he ordered, "and page Dr. Patel from Pediatric Emergency Services. Tell her it's potentially a code atlas." Code atlas was the hospital's discreet signal for a suspected child abuse or trafficking situation. As Eleanor was wheeled toward radiology, the teddy bear still clutched in her hand, no one could predict that this routine imaging would uncover a horrific truth hidden within her small body. A truth that would set in motion a chain of events reaching far beyond the walls of Banner Desert Medical Center, into the dark world of international drug cartels and human trafficking. What the CT scan showed next left even veteran medical professionals speechless. Dozens of deadly packages turning an innocent child into a walking time bomb that could detonate at any moment. The radiology department was quieter than the bustling emergency room. Eleanor lay still on the CT scanner table, her eyes fixed on the circular opening of the machine. The technician had allowed her to keep Miguel, her teddy bear, just outside the scanner where she could see him. "You're doing great, Elena," the technician encouraged through the intercom. "Just a few more minutes. Stay very still for me, okay?" In the adjacent room, Dr. Torres watched intently as the first images appeared on the screen. His experienced eyes immediately spotted something unusual. Several small, uniformly shaped objects scattered throughout the girl's gastrointestinal tract. His heart sank as he recognized the distinctive appearance. "Can you enhance section B7?" he asked the technician, his voice tense. As the image sharpened, there was no room for doubt. Eleanor's stomach and intestines contained at least 24 tightly packed oval capsules, each about an inch long, drug packages, professionally sealed, but already showing signs of deterioration. One capsule in her lower intestine appeared to be leaking its contents. "Oh my God," whispered the technician. "Finish the scan quickly," Dr. Torres instructed, already reaching for his phone. "Then bring her directly back to the ER. Don't say anything about what we've found, especially not in front of the man who brought her in." Minutes later, in a secluded consultation room, Dr. Torres showed the images to Dr. Anita Patel, the pediatric emergency specialist who had responded to the code atlas. "I count 27 capsules," Dr. Patel said gravely. "Based on their density and appearance, they're likely cocaine or heroin. If even one ruptures completely." "One already shows signs of leakage," Dr. Torres pointed out. "That explains her symptoms. She's already experiencing mild toxicity." "We need to operate immediately," Dr. Patel concluded, "and we need law enforcement here now." "Where's the supposed father?" "Still in the waiting area. I had security keep an eye on him without making it obvious." Dr. Torres reached for the hospital phone and dialed a number few at the hospital knew existed, a direct line to the FBI's Crimes Against Children unit in Phoenix. "This is Dr. Raymond Torres at Banner Desert Medical Center," he said when the line connected. "I need to report a child being used as a drug mule. We have an approximately 9-year-old female with multiple drug capsules in her GI tract at least one leaking. The situation is life-threatening." The agent on the other end asked several rapid questions. "Yes, the man who brought her in claims to be her father, but there are multiple inconsistencies in his story," Dr. Torres continued. "We need immediate assistance, both for potential arrest and because we believe this may connect to a larger trafficking operation." After hanging up, Dr. Torres turned to Dr. Patel. "FBI agents will be here in 15 minutes. In the meantime, we need to prepare for emergency surgery without alerting the suspect." "How do we handle consent for the procedure?" Dr. Patel asked. "Legally, we need parental authorization, except in life-threatening emergencies." "This qualifies as life-threatening," Dr. Torres confirmed grimly. "If that capsule fully ruptures, she could go into cardiac arrest within minutes. We'll invoke emergency consent protocols, but first, let's try to separate him from the child without raising suspicion." Back in the emergency department, Nurse Williams approached Rick Martinez, who was pacing anxiously near Elena's curtained area. "Mr. Martinez, we need to update your information in our system and get insurance details," she said with practiced calm. "Would you mind coming to the registration desk? It should only take a few minutes. Elena is still in radiology, so this is a good time to handle the paperwork." Rick hesitated, glancing toward the radiology department doors. "How much longer will she be in there?" "Not long now," Susan assured him. "But you know how slow the insurance verification can be. Better to start the process now so there are no delays in her treatment." As Susan led Rick toward the administration area, in the opposite direction from where Elena would be returning, she silently counted the security personnel who had casually positioned themselves nearby, alerted by Dr. Torres. The trap was being set, but everyone knew the real race was against time, specifically against the deteriorating drug capsules that threatened Elena's life with each passing minute. As the doctor's urgent words echoed through secure FBI channels, no one realized they were witnessing the first domino fall in what would become the most significant child trafficking bust in Arizona history. Special Agent Diana Reyes of the FBI's Crimes Against Children unit was wrapping up paperwork when the call came in. Within seconds of hearing Dr. Torres's report, she was mobilizing her team. "We have a confirmed child drug mule case at Banner Desert Medical Center," she briefed the 4 agents assembling in the office. 9-year-old female with multiple drug capsules showing signs of leakage. Suspected trafficker is on site claiming to be the father. Hospital security is containing him discreetly, but we need to move fast. This has all the hallmarks of a cartel operation." As they loaded into unmarked vehicles, Agent Reyes continued, "Jensen and Patel, you're on suspect. Containment. Park and Liu coordinate with hospital security and set up a perimeter. I'll interface with medical staff and the victim. Remember, we have 2 priorities, saving this child's life and gathering enough intelligence to roll up whatever network is behind this." Sirens silent but lights flashing, the FBI vehicles wove through Phoenix traffic. Agent Reyes made additional calls to the DEA, to Border Patrol Intelligence, and to the Special Prosecutor for Human Trafficking cases. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Elena had been brought back from radiology and isolated in a secure treatment room, away from Rick Martinez's sight. Her vital signs were becoming increasingly unstable: elevated heart rate, rising blood pressure, and worrying cardiac arrhythmias. The toxicology screen shows cocaine metabolites in her bloodstream, Dr. Patel reported to Dr. Torres as they prepared for emergency surgery. The leaking capsule is definitely cocaine, probably high purity. We need to get these packages out immediately. Nurse Williams entered the room with urgent news. The FBI is 3 minutes out, and the man Martinez is getting agitated at the registration desk. He's demanding to see Elena. Dr. Torres made a quick decision. We can't wait. Prep her for immediate surgery. Susan, have security ready to intervene if necessary, but try to keep him occupied for just a few more minutes until the FBI arrives. In the administrative area, Rick Martinez was growing increasingly suspicious. This is taking too long, he snapped at the clerk. I need to check on my daughter now. Just as he turned to leave, the hospital doors slid open and Agent Reyes entered with her team, dressed in casual clothes but moving with unmistakable purpose. They spread out strategically, taking positions near exits and around the waiting area. Agent Reyes approached the security desk, flashed her badge discreetly, and received a subtle nod toward Rick. She evaluated him quickly, a man in his 30s, well-dressed but tense, eyes constantly scanning the environment in a threat assessment pattern familiar to any law enforcement officer. As Rick turned toward the treatment areas, Agent Reyes intercepted him, her badge now visible on her belt. Mr. Martinez, I'm Dr. Reyes. From Pediatric Services, she lied smoothly. I've just been consulting on your daughter's case. Could we talk for a moment about what we're seeing in her scans? Rick's eyes narrowed, his hand instinctively moving toward his waistband before stopping. Where's Elena? I want to see her now. She's being prepped for some additional tests, Agent Reyes continued calmly, even as she noted his hand movement and the likely presence of a concealed weapon. She subtly signaled to her team. The images showed some concerning abnormalities we need to discuss immediately. What abnormalities? Rick demanded, his voice rising. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private, Agent Reyes suggested, gesturing toward a nearby consultation room, where 2 agents were already positioned inside. For a moment it seemed Rick would comply. Then his gaze caught the reflection of another agent approaching from behind, in the glass of a framed hospital poster. In an instant his demeanor changed. FBI, he hissed, and made a break for the side exit. Subject fleeing, Agent Reyes called out, giving chase. Possible armed suspect. What followed was a tense pursuit through the hospital corridors, with patients and staff being hurriedly moved out of the way by security. Rick Martinez, or whatever his real name was, showed the trained movements of someone with military or criminal tactical experience, using corners and obstacles to his advantage. But the FBI team had anticipated his possible escape routes. As Rick burst through a service entrance into the parking structure, he found himself facing agents Jensen and Park, weapons drawn. FBI, hands up, get on the ground, they commanded in unison. For a second, Rick's hand moved toward his waistband. Again. The agents tensed, fingers tightening on triggers. Then, seemingly calculating his odds, Rick slowly raised his hands and sank to his knees. You don't understand what you're doing, he said as Agent Reyes caught up and began handcuffing him. If those packages aren't delivered, they'll kill her family. You've just signed their death warrants. Agent Reyes pulled him to his feet. Ricardo Vasquez, you're under arrest for child endangerment, drug trafficking, and suspected human trafficking. We'll discuss your concerns at the field office after we make sure the little girl you've poisoned survives. As Vasquez was led to a waiting FBI vehicle, Agent Reyes returned to the hospital to find an even more urgent situation unfolding. Elena had gone into cardiac arrest on the way to the operating room, the toxic contents of the leaking capsule finally overwhelming her small body's defenses. When the little girl finally whispered her real name, it wasn't just her identity that was revealed, it was an entire shadow network that had been hiding in plain sight, trafficking children under the perfect disguise. The pediatric operating room was a flurry of controlled chaos as Dr. Torres and his surgical team fought to save Elena's life. Her small body lay exposed on the operating table, surrounded by the harsh glare of surgical lights and the persistent beep of monitoring equipment. "Another round of Narcan," Dr. Torres ordered, his voice steady despite the emergency. "And prepare for gastric lavage once we've stabilized her." Outside the OR, Agent Reyes waited tensely, joined now by Agent Maria Cortez, a specialist in interviewing child victims of trafficking. The situation was unfolding on multiple fronts: Elena fighting for her life in surgery, Ricardo Vasquez being processed at FBI headquarters, and teams already analyzing the false identification and documentation found in his possession. "Oh, we've got movement on the background check," Agent Cortez reported, looking at her secure phone. "Fingerprints match a known associate of the Sinaloa splinter group operating across the Arizona-Sonora border. He's been on DEA watch lists for 3 years but has never been caught with product. Because he uses children as mules," Agent Reyes concluded grimly, "hiding in plain sight as a family man." The OR doors swung open and a surgical nurse emerged, removing her mask. "She's stabilized," she announced. "Dr. Torres managed to remove the leaking capsule and is now extracting the others. It's going to be a lengthy procedure, but her vitals are improving." Both agents exhaled in relief. "When will we be able to speak with her?" Agent Reyes asked. "Not for several hours at least. She'll be heavily sedated and in recovery." Agent Cortez nodded. "I'll set up a child-friendly interview, space for when she's ready. In the meantime, let's see what else we can learn." 3 hours later, as the sunset painted Phoenix's skyline in shades of crimson and gold, Dr. Torres emerged from surgery, exhausted but satisfied. "We removed all 27 capsules intact," he reported to the waiting agents. "Without surgery, she would have died within hours. Even with one leaking capsule, it's remarkable she survived." "What was inside?" Agent Reyes asked. "Lab is still testing, but preliminary analysis shows high-grade cocaine, likely over 90% pure. Each capsule contained approximately 10 grams. The street value would be—" Dr. Torres shook his head, the calculation too disturbing to complete. "Over $50,000 total," Agent Cortez finished softly. "Enough to make risking a child's life worth it to these people." "When can we talk to her?" Agent Reyes asked again. "She's in recovery now. Given the circumstances and her age, I'd recommend waiting until morning. The psychology team is already involved. They'll help ensure questioning doesn't further traumatize her." Agent Reyes nodded reluctantly, knowing each passing hour could mean other children were in similar danger, but also understanding the fragility of their only witness. By morning, Elena had been moved to a secure room in the pediatric ICU with an FBI agent discreetly posted outside. She was awake, still connected to various monitoring devices, but the ventilator had been removed. The teddy bear remained clutched in her hand, somehow having found its way from radiology to her recovery room, a small act of kindness from an attentive nurse. Agent Cortez entered alone, dressed in casual clothes rather than a suit, carrying a small backpack. Her approach was measured and non-threatening as she sat in a chair near, but not too close to, Elena's bed. "Good morning, Elena. My name is Maria," she began softly. "I'm here to help you. You're safe now." The girl's dark eyes watched warily, giving nothing away. "I like your bear," Agent Cortez continued. "What's his name?" After a long pause, Elena whispered, "Miguel. Miguel is a good friend, isn't he? He stayed with you this whole time." Agent Cortez opened her backpack and pulled out a colorful drawing pad and markers. "I thought you might like to draw while we talk. Sometimes it's easier to show things than to say them." Slowly, over the course of an hour, through gentle questions and drawings, the first pieces of truth emerged. Elena wasn't Elena Martinez, from Tucson. Her real name was Elena Gonzalez, and she was from a small town called Nogales on the Mexican side of the border. The man who claimed to be her father was not related to her at all. She knew him only as Tío Rick, who had taken her from her home 3 months ago, promising her mother that Elena would attend a special school in America and send money back to help with her younger siblings' medical expenses. There had been no school, only a succession of different houses and constant threats. If Elena didn't do exactly as told, Tío Rick warned, her family would suffer. And so, when he had instructed her to swallow the medicine packages that would help sick people, In America, she had complied despite the pain and fear. Elena, Agent Cortez asked gently, are there other children like you? Other friends who had to carry packages? The girl nodded slowly, her crayon moving across the paper to draw a house with stick figures. Carlos and Lucia, she whispered. They live at the Blue House. Can you tell me more about this Blue House? Elena's drawing became more detailed. A 2-story house with a distinctive weather vane and 3 palm trees in front. In the margins, she carefully drew symbols and landmarks that a child would notice. A playground across the street, a store, with an ice cream sign, a yellow school bus. Agent Cortez recognized the methodical quality of the drawing. Elena had been coached to memorize locations exactly, a skill that made her valuable to the trafficking network. You're very brave, Elena, Agent Cortez assured her, carefully collecting the drawings. Because of you, we can help Carlos and Lucia too. As Agent Cortez left the room to share this critical intelligence with her team, Elena's small voice called after her. Can you call my real mama? I want to go home. The simple request carried the weight of all that had been stolen from this child, her safety, her innocence, her trust. But it also offered the first real lead to unraveling a network that had eluded law enforcement for years, using the perfect camouflage, children posing as tourists, carrying deadly cargo across borders that no one thought to question. As surgeons fought to remove the deadly packages from Elena's tiny body, an FBI team was mobilizing for the most dangerous rescue mission of their careers, because what waited in that Blue House was far worse than anyone could imagine. The FBI field office in Phoenix was transformed into a command center within hours of Elena's revelation. Large monitors displayed satellite images of neighborhoods matching Elena's description, while analysts cross-referenced her detailed drawings with known properties linked to cartel activities. We've identified 3 potential locations for the Blue House, Agent Reyes announced to the assembled task force, which now included DEA agents, ICE officers, and local law enforcement, all in Chandler within a 5-mile radius. Time is critical, added the DEA tactical commander. If Vasquez's associates realize he's been arrested, they'll likely move the other children or, worse, use them for one final transport, and then eliminate witnesses. Agent Cortez, who had remained Elena's primary point of contact, entered the briefing room with fresh information. Elena remembered more details during our last session. The Blue House is near a school bus yard. She could see yellow buses parked every night from her window. And there's a church with a pointy roof nearby. An analyst quickly narrowed the search. That's got to be 1421 Sycamore Drive. It's the only property that matches all criteria, including the bus depot for Chandler Unified School District just a block away, and St. Michael's Church with its distinctive steeple. Agent Reyes studied the satellite imagery. Good defensive position, corner lot, privacy fence, multiple exit routes. These people chose carefully. She turned to the tactical team leader. How soon can we move? We need eyes on the property. First, confirm the presence of children before we go in hot. Within an hour, surveillance was established from multiple angles. Unmarked vehicles with sophisticated audio and thermal imaging equipment positioned themselves discreetly in the vicinity, while agents posing as utility workers gained closer access. The confirmation came shortly after noon. Thermal imaging detected 4 distinct heat signatures consistent with children's bodies, all contained in what appeared to be a second-floor room at the rear of the house. Additionally, 3 adult-sized signatures moved through the property. We've got positive confirmation, Agent Reyes decided. 4 children, 3 adults. Unknown if armed, but we have to assume yes based on cartel connections. The raid was planned for 3:15 a.m., the lowest point of human alertness according to tactical experts. As midnight approached, Agent Reyes made a final visit to the hospital to update Dr. Torres and check on Elena. She's doing remarkably well physically, Dr. Torres reported. The toxicology screens are finally clearing, but psychologically, he shook his head. The child psychologist believes she's been subjected to prolonged manipulation and fear conditioning. Recovery will take time. She's giving us a chance to save other children from the same fate, Agent Reyes said. Her courage is extraordinary. Insane. Elena's room. The lights were dimmed, but the girl was awake, still clutching Miguel the teddy bear. "We found the blue house," Agent Reyes told her gently. "We're going to help Carlos and Lucia and the others tonight." Elena nodded solemnly. "Be careful. The men have guns under the couch cushions and in the kitchen drawer with the spoons." Agent Reyes managed to hide her shock at this precise intelligence. "Thank you for telling me. That's very helpful." "Will I see my real mama soon?" Elena asked, her voice small in the darkened room. "We're working on it," Agent Reyes promised. "First, we need to make sure everyone is safe." Back at the command center, this new information was rapidly incorporated into the tactical plan. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the operation commenced with synchronized precision. FBI tactical teams, supported by DEA and local SWAT, approached the house from multiple angles. Using Elena's intelligence, they were able to neutralize the hidden weapons caches immediately upon entry. The raid was executed with minimal violence. 2 suspects surrendered immediately, while a third attempted resistance but was quickly subdued. Most importantly, 4 children between the ages of 8 and 12 were recovered from a locked bedroom. Carlos and Lucia, whom Elena had named, plus 2 others, Mateo and Daniela, all showed signs of malnutrition and psychological abuse. Medical examinations would later confirm that 2 of them, Carlos and Mateo, had also recently been used as drug mules, the surgical scars still fresh on their abdomens, where packages had been removed at some makeshift medical facility. As dawn broke over Phoenix, Agent Reyes stood in the driveway of the Blue House, watching as the children were gently loaded into ambulances for transportation to Banner Desert Medical Center, where Dr. Torres and his team waited to receive them. Her phone rang. It was the FBI director himself calling from Washington. "Their exceptional work, Agent Reyes," he began. "Preliminary interrogation of the suspects is already yielding valuable intelligence. This wasn't an isolated operation. It's part of a larger network using children as drug mules across multiple border states." "With all due respect, sir," Agent Reyes replied, watching the ambulances pull away, "I didn't call this exceptional work. The exceptional one is a 9-year-old girl who managed to memorize critical details while being trafficked and drugged, all while keeping her humanity intact. She's the hero here." As the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the suburban landscape, search teams continued processing the Blue House, discovering evidence that would ultimately link this operation to trafficking cells in California, New Mexico, and Texas. The seemingly ordinary home had been the Arizona hub in an elaborate network that specialized in using children as drug carriers, children who would never raise suspicion at border crossings or routine traffic stops. Meanwhile, at Banner Desert Medical Center, 4 more young victims began their long journey toward physical and psychological recovery, joining Elena in a specially secured pediatric wing where medical care could be provided alongside protection from those who might still wish them harm. The passport photo revealed what everyone had feared. This child had been erased from existence, her identity stolen and rewritten by traffickers with connections that reached into the highest levels of power across 2 countries. In the secure conference room of the FBI Phoenix field office, the evidence wall told a story that grew more disturbing with each new addition. Photographs, documents, and diagrams connected Ricardo Vasquez, now positively identified through fingerprint analysis, to a complex network of child traffickers and drug smugglers operating along the US-Mexico border. Agent Reyes stood before the wall, coffee in hand, studying the connections that had emerged over the past 48 hours of intense investigation. "Vasquez is talking," announced Agent Jensen as he entered the room. The prosecutor offered him a deal if he provides information that leads to the dismantling of the entire network and the safe recovery of all trafficked children. "What's he giving us?" Agent Reyes asked, not taking her eyes off the evidence board. "Names, locations, methods. According to him, the operation has moved approximately 30 children across the border in the past year, using them as drug mules. The pattern is always the same. They target impoverished families in Sonora, especially those with medical debts or financial emergencies. They promise the parents that their child will attend school in America and send money home. And the Parents believe this? Agent Cortez asked incredulously. They provide convincing documentation, even arrange supervised phone calls where the children are coached to tell their parents how well they're doing in their new schools. Some parents receive monthly wire transfers, supposedly from their child's work. Actually, cartel money to keep them compliant. Agent Reyes shook her head. And Elena, what's her story? Jensen consulted his notes. Elena Gonzalez, age 9, from Nogales, Sonora. Mother is Maria Gonzalez, a widow with 3 younger children. The youngest has congenital heart problems requiring expensive medication. Vasquez approached Maria through a charitable foundation that supposedly helped place children in American households for better opportunities. Have we located the mother? Agent Reyes asked. Mexican authorities are bringing her to the border crossing at Nogales as we speak. Our agents will escort her to Phoenix to be reunited with Elena. This news brought the first smile to Agent Reyes's face in days. Make sure Dr. Torres and the psychological team are prepared for the reunion. After what Elena's been through, even seeing her mother might trigger complicated emotions. Across town at Banner Desert Medical Center, Elena sat with Dr. Sarah Winters, a child psychologist specializing in trauma. They were engaged in a therapy session using art and play to help Elena process her experiences. Can you tell me about your journey from Nogales to Phoenix? Dr. Winters asked gently. As Elena arranged dolls in a dollhouse, the girl placed a small female doll in one room, separated from a larger female doll by a wall. Mama said I was going to a special school. Tio Rick said I would learn English and computers and send money for Jaime's medicine. And what happened instead? Dr. Winters prompted. Elena's movements became more agitated. She placed several male dolls around the small female doll. They took my passport and my phone. They said if I tried to run away or tell anyone, they would hurt Mama and Jaime and my sisters. With remarkable clarity for her age, Elena described how she had been moved between multiple houses over 3 months, always with other children, always under strict surveillance. They were drilled daily on their cover stories, who their fathers were, where they lived, what to say if questioned, by authorities. Last week, Tio Rick told me I had to swallow medicine packages to help sick people, Elena continued, her voice becoming smaller. It hurt. I didn't want to. But he showed me pictures of my house in Nogales and said there were men watching. My family. Dr. Winters gently steered the conversation toward recovery and safety, reinforcing that Elena was now protected and that her family would be safe. As the session concluded, she prepared to deliver the news that would begin Elena's healing journey. Elena, I have something very important to tell you, Dr. Winters said softly. Your real mother, your mama from Nogales, is coming to see you today. Elena's eyes widened, a complex mixture of emotions crossing her face. Hope, disbelief, fear. Really? Mama is coming here? Yes, the FBI agents helped find her and she's on her way right now. Will Tio Rick be angry? Elena whispered, the conditioning of months not easily broken. Tio Rick can never hurt you or your family again, Dr. Winters assured her. He's going to be in jail for a very long time. That afternoon, in a private room decorated with cheerful colors and equipped with discreet security cameras, Elena Gonzalez was reunited with her mother, Maria. FBI agents and psychological support staff observed from an adjacent room, ready to intervene if necessary, but giving the family privacy for their reunion. Maria Gonzalez, a petite woman worn beyond her 32 years by hardship, broke into tears at the sight of her daughter. She rushed forward, then hesitated, sensing Elena's uncertainty. For a moment, Elena remained frozen, clutching Miguel the teddy bear like a shield. Then, with a small sob, she launched herself into her mother's arms. "Mama, Mama!" she cried, all pretenses of being the brave girl finally dissolving in the safety of her mother's embrace. Through tears and in rapid Spanish, Maria explained how she had been deceived, how she had received photos and voice messages from Elena that seemed to show she was thriving, how the foundation had sent money for Jaime's medication, making her believe Elena was being well cared for, how she had grown suspicious when the calls became less frequent, but was told Elena was simply busy with school activities. "I never stopped looking for you," Maria sobbed, stroking her daughter's hair. When the American FBI agents came to our door yesterday, I thought the worst had happened. In the observation room, Agent Reyes watched the reunion with mixed emotions. The joy of reconnection was evident, but so too was the long road of healing ahead for both mother and daughter. "We'll need to arrange protective custody," she told Dr. Torres, who had joined her. "The cartel won't be happy about losing such a valuable operation. Elena and her family could be at risk of retaliation." "What will happen to them long term?" Dr. Torres asked. "We're working with the State Department on humanitarian parole visas for the entire family," Agent Reyes explained. "Given Elena's cooperation and the danger they face in Mexico, they have a strong case for remaining in the U.S. under protected status." The reunion marked a turning point in the investigation, with Maria Gonzalez able to provide additional details about the foundation that had recruited her daughter. FBI and Mexican authorities identified 2 more recruitment centers in Sonora and Chihuahua, leading to the rescue of 15 more children in various stages of being processed as drug mules. Ricardo Vasquez, facing multiple life sentences, continued to provide information in exchange for considerations in his sentencing. The picture that emerged was more disturbing than anyone had initially suspected. A sophisticated operation that had been growing for years, using the perfect cover of fake families and exploiting the vulnerability of impoverished parents desperate to provide better lives for their children. Operation Teddy Bear would become legendary in law enforcement circles, a synchronized strike across the border that would expose how cartels had weaponized children's innocence in the most heartless trafficking scheme authorities had ever encountered. 3 days after Elena's reunion with her mother, the largest coordinated anti-trafficking operation in recent Arizona history was underway. Codenamed Operation Teddy Bear in honor of Elena's faithful companion Miguel, it involved over 200 agents from the FBI, DEA, ICE, Border Patrol, and local law enforcement, working in tandem with Mexican federal police across 6 locations on both sides of the border. The command center at the FBI Phoenix field office hummed with activity as updates flowed in from tactical teams. Agent Reyes, who had been appointed operational coordinator, moved between monitoring stations tracking the simultaneous raids. Phoenix team reports all clear. 3 suspects in custody, no children present at the location, reported an analyst. Tucson team has secured their objective. 4 children recovered, all between ages 7 and 11. Medical personnel attending. Nogales crossing point interdiction successful. Vehicle matching description. Attempted to flee secondary inspection. Driver and passenger in custody. Hidden compartment located in rear seats contained approximately 20 kilos of cocaine. Each success built upon the intelligence painstakingly assembled from Elena's testimony, Ricardo Vasquez's cooperation, and the evidence gathered from the Blue House in Chandler. What had begun as a single medical emergency had unraveled an entire criminal enterprise. In a secure conference room away from the main command center, DEA Special Agent Thomas Hargrove briefed a select group on the broader implications. "What we're seeing here is an evolution in cartel tactics," he explained, pointing to a diagram showing trafficking routes. "Traditional drug mules, adults swallowing or carrying packages, have become too risky with improved scanning technology and drug dogs at legal crossing points. Using children as both carriers and camouflage represents an adaptation we hadn't fully recognized until now. The psychological component is particularly insidious," added Dr. Catherine Reed, a forensic psychologist specializing in trafficking victims. "These children aren't just physically carrying drugs, they're being systematically conditioned through fear, isolation, and false promises. The traffickers create a perfect psychological trap. The children fear both the traffickers and the authorities, who might separate them from their families." As Operation Teddy Bear continued into its second day, the full scope of the trafficking network became clear. In total, 23 children were rescued, 17 adults arrested, and over 100 kilograms of various narcotics seized. Documentation recovered from various locations helped identify dozens more potential victims and recruiters throughout Mexico and Central America. At Banner Desert Medical Center, now serving as a temporary refuge for the recovered children, Elena had taken on an unexpected role. Though still processing her own trauma, she had become something of a big sister to the younger victims, explaining to them in children's terms that they were safe, that the bad people couldn't hurt them anymore. Dr. Torres observed this phenomenon with professional interest and personal admiration. "It's a form of healing through helping," he explained to Agent Cortez during her daily visit. "By reassuring others, she's reassuring herself. It's quite remarkable in someone so young." "How are the other children progressing?" Agent Cortez asked. "Physically, most are stable. 2 required minor surgeries to address complications from previous forced drug transport. Psychologically," Dr. Torres shook his head, "that's a longer journey. Some haven't spoken a word since arrival. Others alternate between nightmares and periods of dissociation. Our child psychology team is working around the clock. And the reunifications? Mixed results. Some parents appear to have been genuine victims of deception, like Maria Gonzalez. Others..." His expression darkened. "We have at least 3 cases where evidence suggests the parents were knowing participants in the trafficking. Those situations are being handled differently, with child protective services involved. The legal and diplomatic challenges were equally complex. International custody issues, asylum applications, witness protection concerns, and long-term support needs created a tangled web of responsibilities spread across multiple agencies and jurisdictions. In Washington, the case had attracted attention at the highest levels. The U.S. Attorney General personally oversaw the formation of a special task force to address the emerging threat of child trafficking disguised as family migration, while the Secretary of State engaged with Mexican authorities on improved cross-border cooperation. For Elena Gonzalez and her family, these macro-level policy discussions translated into very personal realities. They had been relocated to temporary housing under protective custody, with Maria's other children, including Jaime with his heart condition, brought to Arizona to reunite with them. The family faced an uncertain future, balanced between the danger of returning to Mexico and the challenges of building a new life in the United States. "We're working to expedite their humanitarian parole applications," Agent Reyes explained to Dr. Torres during a case review. "Given their cooperation and the clear threat to their safety, I'm optimistic. But bureaucracy moves at its own pace." "And in the meantime?" Dr. Torres asked. "In the meantime, we protect them. Elena's testimony will be crucial in the pending federal cases. Beyond that," Agent Reyes sighed, the weight of the past week evident in her expression. "Beyond that, we try to give them back some semblance of normalcy, whatever that means after something like this." As Operation Teddy Bear transitioned from the acute phase of raids and rescues to the longer process of investigation and prosecution, one thing became increasingly clear to all involved. The case had exposed a blind spot in border security and human trafficking awareness. A blind spot that had allowed criminals to exploit the most vulnerable victims, hiding their operations behind the facade of normal family life. The techniques developed to identify and dismantle this particular network would now need to be institutionalized, refined, and shared across agencies. The lessons learned, paid for with the suffering of children like Elena, would hopefully prevent countless others from experiencing the same fate. When Elena finally saw her real mother again, their tears told a story no words could capture of profound loss, miraculous reunion, and the devastating reality that some wounds would never fully heal even with time. 6 weeks after her emergency surgery, Elena Gonzalez sat in a sunlit room at the newly established Child Trafficking Recovery Center in Scottsdale, Arizona. The facility, temporarily housed in a repurposed corporate retreat center, had been rapidly established through emergency federal funding to provide specialized care for the children rescued during Operation Teddy Bear. Elena was drawing, activity that had become both therapeutic and communicative for her. Today's picture showed a small house with a garden surrounded by a fence. In careful block letters she had written, "Our new home," across the top. Dr. Sarah Winters sat nearby, observing but not interrupting. These drawing sessions had become valuable windows into Elena's processing of events and her hopes for the future. "Is this where you want to live?" Dr. Winters asked gently when Elena put down her crayon. Agent Diana said we might get a house like this, Elena replied. Her English had improved dramatically over the past weeks, though she still switched to Spanish when discussing emotional topics. Not in Nogales, but somewhere safe. And how do you feel about that? Not going back to your old home? Elena considered the question with a seriousness beyond her years. I miss my friends, but Mama says Jaime's doctors are better here. She pointed to a stick figure in the garden of her drawing. And Jaime can play outside without getting too tired now. The mention of her younger brother brought a genuine smile to Elena's face. Jaime's heart condition, which had been the financial pressure point exploited by the traffickers to target the family, was now being properly treated at Phoenix Children's Hospital, with costs covered by a special victims fund. The door opened and Maria Gonzalez entered, accompanied by Agent Reyes. Both women had become constants in Elena's new life, one representing family and love, the other protection and justice. Elena Querida, Maria said, taking a seat beside her daughter. Agent Diana has some news for us. Agent Reyes knelt to be at eye level with Elena. Over the weeks, she had abandoned some of her professional detachment with the Gonzalez family, becoming personally invested in their recovery and future. Elena, remember how we talked about finding a permanent safe place for you and your family? She began. I just received word that your humanitarian parole visas have been approved. Your family can stay in the United States legally while the court cases continue. Elena looked to her mother for interpretation of this adult news. It means we don't have to hide anymore, mija, Maria explained, tears of relief in her eyes. It means the bad people cannot reach us, and Jaime can keep seeing his doctors, and you and your sisters can go to school here. The full impact of this news would take time for Elena to process. Her world had been repeatedly upended, first by the traffickers who had taken her from her home, then by the medical emergency and rescue that had freed her from them, and now by this new reality of building a life in a different country. Later that day, Elena participated in her regular group therapy session with 5 other rescued children. Led by Dr. Reed, the session used age-appropriate activities to help the children process their experiences and rebuild their sense of safety. Today we're talking about bravery, Dr. Reed explained as the children sat in a circle. Can anyone tell me what being brave means to them? Various answers came from around the circle, standing up to bullies, not being afraid of the dark, helping someone in trouble. When it was Elena's turn, she thought carefully before speaking. Being brave is telling the truth even when the bad. People said they would hurt you if you did. Dr. Reed nodded, recognizing the profound insight in this simple statement. That's a very important kind of bravery, Elena, and it's the kind that helps other people too. This concept of her suffering and courage having meaning beyond herself had become an important part of Elena's healing journey. Understanding that her testimonies and cooperation had directly led to the rescue of other children, provided a framework for making sense of her traumatic experiences. Meanwhile, the legal cases against the trafficking network continued to develop. Ricardo Vasquez and 17 other defendants faced federal charges including drug trafficking, human trafficking, kidnapping, child endangerment, and conspiracy. The prosecutions were complex, involving international evidence, protected witnesses, and the challenging issue of child testimony. We're doing everything possible to minimize Elena's direct involvement in court, Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Chen explained to Maria and Agent Reyes during a case preparation meeting. Most of her testimony can be handled through recorded statements and age-appropriate forensic interviews. She's already provided tremendous assistance through the initial interviews and identifications. And the men who took her, they will stay in prison, Maria asked, her primary concern always the safety of her children. The evidence is overwhelming, Attorney Chen assured her. Between Elena's testimony, the physical evidence, Vasquez's cooperation, and the documentation recovered in the raids, we have one of the strongest trafficking cases I've seen in my career. These convictions will set precedents for future prosecutions. As weeks turned into months, the immediate crisis response evolved into longer-term recovery and adjustment. The Gonzalez family was moved from temporary protective housing to a modest home in a Phoenix suburb, enrolled in support programs, and connected with the local Mexican-American community. Elena and her siblings began attending public school with special accommodations for their unique situation. Maria found part-time work at a community center serving immigrant families, where her experiences helped her connect with others in transition. The scars, both physical and psychological, remained. Elena still suffered nightmares and anxiety in certain situations. Loud noises could trigger panic responses. Trust, especially with adult male authority figures, remained a complicated issue. But there was also resilience, growth, and increasingly hope. Dr. Torres, who had performed the emergency surgery that saved Elena's life, maintained contact with the family through follow-up medical care. During one such appointment, as he checked the healing of Elena's surgical scars, he found himself the recipient of an unexpected gift. "I made this for you," Elena said shyly, handing him a carefully folded paper crane. "It's beautiful," Dr. Torres responded, genuinely touched. "Who taught you to make this?" "Ms. Parker, my art teacher. She says in Japan, paper cranes mean healing and good wishes. I wanted to thank you for fixing my stomach when the bad packages were hurting me." Dr. Torres carefully placed the crane in his lab coat pocket. "I will keep it on my desk to remind me of you, Elena, and of how brave you've been." As he completed the examination, Dr. Torres reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had begun in his emergency room nearly 3 months earlier. A routine shift had become a pivotal moment, not just in this child's life, but in exposing a criminal enterprise that had exploited countless children. "You know," he told Elena as the appointment concluded, "doctors are supposed to help people get better when they're sick or hurt. But sometimes, like with you, the patients end up helping the doctors learn important things too." Elena considered this with her characteristic thoughtfulness, like how to look inside someone's tummy and find hidden bad things. "Exactly like that," Dr. Torres agreed. "Exactly like that." What began with a desperate rush to the ER ended with a revolution in how America protects its most vulnerable. The Elena Protocol now saves hundreds of children every year, all because one brave girl refused to remain silent in the face of unspeakable evil. 1 year after the emergency surgery that had saved Elena Gonzalez's life and exposed a transnational child trafficking network, a modest ceremony took place at the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. Among those present were Agent Diana Reyes, Dr. Raymond Torres, representatives from various federal agencies involved in Operation Teddy Bear, and, seated in the front, Elena herself, now 10 years old, accompanied by her mother Maria. The FBI director presented a special recognition award, not to an agent or law enforcement officer, but to this young girl whose courage and resilience had made possible one of the most significant anti-trafficking operations in recent history. While we cannot show her face or use her real name for ongoing security reasons, the director explained to the assembled press, we can acknowledge that without this young person's extraordinary cooperation and bravery, dozens of other children might still be in the hands of traffickers today. Elena, dressed in a blue dress and with her hair neatly braided, accepted the framed certificate with solemn dignity. She had grown taller over the past year, and the acute trauma in her eyes had softened, though careful observers might still notice how she scanned rooms for exits or startled at sudden movements. The ceremony marked more than personal recognition. It coincided with the announcement of major policy initiatives stemming directly from Operation Teddy Bear, enhanced training for medical personnel in recognizing signs of trafficking, new protocols for border agents interviewing children, specialized victim support services, and improved international cooperation between US and Mexican authorities. The trafficking network exposed through this case revealed critical gaps in our systems, explained the newly appointed Special Coordinator for Child Trafficking Prevention. We've learned that traffickers exploit the assumption that adults traveling with children are family members. We've learned that medical emergencies can be crucial intervention points. And perhaps most importantly, we've learned that when we properly support and protect survivors, they can help us prevent future crimes. For Elena, the Washington ceremony was both overwhelming and empowering. She understood in her child's way that her suffering had been transformed into something that helped others. That knowledge had become an important part of her ongoing healing process. After the official ceremony, a smaller gathering took place in a private conference room. Here, away from cameras and reporters, those who had been directly involved in Elena's case had a chance to reconnect and reflect. "Do you remember anything from that first day in the emergency room?" Dr. Torres asked Elena gently. She nodded, clutching the ever-present Miguel the teddy bear that had accompanied her through surgery, recovery, and now to Washington. "I was scared you would be mad at me about the packages in my stomach. Tio Rick said doctors would call the police and put me in jail if they found out. But instead, we helped you," Agent Reyes reminded her. "Yes," Eleanor agreed. "You helped me find Mama again." Maria Gonzalez, who had been quiet through much of the ceremony, spoke up. "When the agents came to my door in Nogales, I thought they were bringing news that Elena was dead. Instead, they brought us a new life. That new life had taken shape over the past year. With their humanitarian parole status, the Gonzalez family had established themselves in Arizona. Jaime's heart condition was responding well to consistent medical care. The younger children were flourishing in school. Maria had secured full-time employment as a community liaison for a non-profit serving trafficking survivors, her first-hand experience proving invaluable. Elena's recovery continued to have ups and downs. She attended regular therapy and participated in a specialized support group for child survivors of trafficking. There were still nightmares and triggers, still moments when the weight of her experiences seemed overwhelming. But there was also remarkable resilience, a determination to reclaim the childhood that had been temporarily stolen from her. The case files refer to it as the Elena Protocol now, Agent Reyes told Dr. Torres as they watched Elena chatting with another survivor across the room. "The interdepartmental approach we developed for this case, medical, law enforcement, child services, international cooperation, it's being implemented nationwide. 6 more children were identified through emergency room presentations in the past 3 months alone," Dr. Torres added. "Doctors who took the new training recognized the signs we missed initially. Early intervention, before the psychological conditioning becomes entrenched. The legal consequences continued to unfold as well. Ricardo Vasquez had received a reduced sentence in exchange for his cooperation, but would still serve 20 years in federal prison. Higher-level cartel members, identified through the investigation, faced even longer terms. More importantly, the legal precedents established were strengthening trafficking prosecutions across the country. Before departing Washington, Elena and her family visited the Lincoln Memorial. As the sun set over the National Mall, Elena stood looking up at the massive statue of the seated president. "My teacher said he helped free people who were trapped," she told Agent Reyes, who had accompanied them as both protection and friend. "That's right," Agent Reyes confirmed. "He believed everyone deserved to be free." Elena considered this in silence for a moment. "I help free people too then," she said finally. "Yes, Elena," Agent Reyes agreed, blinking back unexpected tears. "You absolutely do." As they walked back toward their hotel, Elena reached out to hold both her mother's hand and Agent Reyes's, a gesture of trust that would have been unimaginable in the frightened, traumatized child who had arrived at Banner Desert Medical Center a year earlier. The case that had begun with a desperate medical emergency, a father rushing his daughter to the hospital, had revealed layer upon layer of deception, exploitation, and criminality. But it had also revealed extraordinary courage, compassion, and the power of human connection across professional boundaries and borders. For Dr. Raymond Torres, the experience had transformed his approach to emergency medicine, making him an advocate for trafficking awareness in medical settings and a frequent speaker at conferences and training sessions. The paper crane Elena had given him remained on his desk, a daily reminder of why seemingly routine cases sometimes deserved a deeper look. For Agent Diana Reyes, the case had reinforced her commitment to victim-centered approaches to law enforcement, demonstrating how proper support for survivors could dramatically improve both their recovery and the effectiveness of investigations. For Elena Gonzalez, the journey continued. The trauma would always be part of her story, but increasingly it was not the defining part. She was a daughter, a sister, a student, a friend. She was a survivor whose courage had changed systems and saved lives. And as she walked between her mother and the FBI agent who had helped rescue her, she was simply a child heading back to the hotel for ice cream before bedtime, a small but profound victory in the ongoing recovery of her stolen childhood. In hospital emergency rooms, border, checkpoints and law enforcement agencies across the country, new protocols were in place, new awareness had been raised, and new vigilance established, all part of the enduring legacy of a 9-year-old girl who had arrived at a Phoenix hospital with stomach pain and unknowingly set in motion the unraveling of a criminal enterprise that had operated in the shadows for too long. The Elena Protocol, as it came to be known in professional circles, would go on to save hundreds of children in similar circumstances. But for the girl herself, the greatest victory was simpler and more personal. The freedom to be a child again, to feel safe, and to trust that the adults around her would protect rather than exploit her vulnerability. As she fell asleep that night in Washington, D.C., thousands of miles from the emergency room where her journey to freedom had begun, Elena clutched Miguel the teddy bear and dreamed not of drug packages and trafficking networks, but of school, projects, playground games, and the birthday party her mother was planning for the following month. Ordinary dreams that represented an extraordinary triumph over the darkness that had temporarily claimed her life. Stories like Elena's happen every day right under our noses, in neighborhoods just like yours. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge now that you have it? Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you seen something that didn't seem quite right? A child who seemed unusually fearful, an adult whose story didn't add up, a situation that gave you that gut feeling that something was wrong, but you talked yourself out of saying anything. The most powerful lesson from Elena's story isn't just about international trafficking rings or complex police operations. It's about the ordinary heroes who noticed the small details and refused to ignore them. A nurse who saw fear in a child's eyes. A doctor who questioned inconsistencies in a supposed father's story. People just like you who trusted their instincts and spoke up when something felt wrong. What if Dr. Torres had dismissed Elena's symptoms as just another stomach bug? What if Nurse Williams had ignored that look of fear when Tio Rick approached? Dozens of children would still be trapped in that nightmare right now. This isn't just a story to shock or entertain you, it's a wake-up call. Human trafficking isn't just happening in distant countries or dark alleys. It's happening in hospitals, schools, and neighborhoods like yours, hiding behind facades of normalcy. So I challenge you right now, what will you do differently after hearing Elena's story? Will you learn the warning signs of trafficking? Will you save that hotline number in your phone? Will you have the courage to speak up the next time something doesn't feel right about a child's situation? The choice to become part of the solution starts with a single decision. Your decision, right now. If this story moved you, don't let that emotion fade away without taking action. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Learn the signs of trafficking in your community. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another story that could give you the knowledge to save a life. Click the video appearing on your screen now to continue watching more emotional true stories. That will open your eyes to realities happening all around us, because sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply to see what's been hiding in plain sight all along. Remember, Elena was saved because ordinary people chose to get involved. What choice will you make today?